Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Amanda Lamb. This week, we're going to be talking about off-the-beaten-path summer excursions, places you can go to see something cool and learn a little history. In today's deep dive conversation with WRAL Hidden History reporter Heather Leah, we're talking about dinosaurs. Yes, I said dinosaurs.
Rawr.
So apparently there is one in the woods in Durham that anyone who is a dinosaur fan needs to see. Heather, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I know this is a statue of a dinosaur because it couldn't be an actual dinosaur, and they call him Bronto, but he's very impressive. Tell me about this dinosaur. What does he look like, and where is he located?
So he is so cool. Some people may remember seeing him when they were children. He's part of an abandoned dinosaur trail that used to be very popular. It was built in the 60s. So he's quite an old dinosaur. Not millions of years old, but still quite old. And he's been through a lot of extinction level events. So he's still there. The other dinosaurs are gone, and we'll talk about what happened to them and how they went extinct in Durham. But he's huge. He's like 70 feet long. He's really tall. He's a brontosaurus, obviously. He's got a nice long neck. And he's just really cool. And when you're walking down the trail and you're coming around the bend, if you don't know he's going to be there, it's quite a shock.
To see him peeking through the woods.
He does. He peeks through the trees.
That's very cool. So you said Dinosaur Trail. Like immediately when I'm hearing Dinosaur Trail, I'm like, okay, what in the world? So what is the history behind this dinosaur trail? How did he get there? And I'm assuming he wasn't the only one there at one time.
Right. So he's been there for, like I said, over 50 years. The trail opened in the 1960s as part of what is today the Museum of Life and Science. And it was the largest one-of-a-kind trail at its time. At the time, it felt authentic and prehistoric. It was full of like thick foliage and trees draped in ivy. There were multiple enormous dinosaurs, and kids could go walk this trail and see these enormous beasts for decades. In fact, even I remember going to see this trail. Now, I would have been going in the 90s, so at that point, the trail, it wasn't closed to the public, but it was no longer on their marketing materials and their maps, right? You had to know it was there because it was kind of destroyed by that point. But I do remember going to see it as a kid, and you could see him kind of far off in the woods. And at the time, a lot of those dinosaurs were starting to really fall apart. Some had limbs missing and heads missing, and they were sort of it was referred to as a papier-mâché graveyard.
Oh, no. Okay, well, we will be back after the break, and we're going to talk about what happened to those dinosaurs. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. So you were talking right before the break about these dinosaurs kind of falling apart and falling into disrepair. So what eventually happened to this trail?
Yeah, so eventually, we had ice storms, snowstorms, hurricanes coming through, and there was vandalism. And slowly, they started just kind of falling into disrepair. By the 90s, like I said, you could still technically visit it, but they weren't really proud of it anymore, and they didn't really encourage people to go there. And eventually, the other dinosaur models were on their way to extinction. They were chipped, peeling, cracked, rotting, vandalized. Some had missing limbs. It would have been a little bit of a terrifying experience for a kid to see. And then there was some hope of maybe restoring this trail at one point. So some of you might be confused. There are still big dinosaurs, and there's a dinosaur trail at that museum. But it's not this trail. This is the old abandoned one. This is kind of the
old one. Gotcha.
This is the old one. So if you're like, I'm confused, I just climbed on a nice dinosaur last week. That was a different trail. This one's off to the side, and it's in the woods around Ellerby Creek. There was a hope of restoring it, but Hurricane Fran came through, and that just sort of finished that dream. The destruction was too much to overcome, and Bronto was just left alone, the lone remnant of his time.
And he was vandalized at one point, and the community kind of was up in arms and said, no, you have to save him. He's the last one.
Yeah, so this was a very beloved dinosaur trail at the time. Many people remembered going as children in the 60s and 70s or bringing their grandkids. It was generational. And so at some point, some of you may remember this. I remember seeing pictures. His head was stolen. Someone cut off his head. And there was just a steel beam coming out of where his head used to be. It was like long, like a brontosaurus neck, but with no head. And the community worked together to raise money. They wanted to preserve Bronto. They did eventually find the head. I think it was only a few days later. And they found a sculptor who could put him back together. And the community, at one point, actually pulled together, and they raised thousands of dollars for repairs. They had Save Bronto t-shirts, which some people still have today. And he's kind of the sole survivor of this, decades-old abandoned dinosaur trail, but you can still see him today.
And I think that same community group, too, you said they raised money, but they were also wanting to keep him safe from everything. Hurricanes, snowstorms, not just vandalism. And so they really did help preserve this piece of history. So Bronto is still there. How can people see him?
So if you want to see him, I will tell you I had a little trouble finding him at first, so I'm going to give you as close of directions as I can. If you go down West Murray Avenue, you're going to see very close to the museum, but on the other side of the road, Westcott's Bronto Trail. There's a sign. That's the trail. I parked at the museum and walked across the street to go down the trail. I believe you can also access it from a nearby park. It runs along Ellerby Creek. And you go down that trail, go around the bend, and you'll see Bronto peeking out at you.
Is. Well, Heather, this is the first of several episodes we're going to be doing this week about summer excursions. Obviously, you're a historian, so history is your thing. But why is it so important, especially with kids, for people to really take time to get to know North Carolina's history and maybe take some time this summer to do that?
I think that our history is fascinating. It's often something fun. We're going to talk about ghost towns that you can visit, a fountain of youth that you can visit, this giant dinosaur you can visit. In the past, we've talked about miniature stone villages. I mean, a lot of this stuff is cool, and it gives you a sense of North Carolina's culture. This is unique to us. How many other cities do you walk around and there's a secret dinosaur hidden in the woods, right?
And I think the thing, too, that you've always impressed upon me is the hidden nature of a lot of this, that a lot of it is right in front of us and we don't realize it's there. We just drive right by it or walk right by it because nobody's told us.
Yeah, you've probably driven past Bronto and didn't even know a dinosaur was hidden in those woods,
Absolutely. Well, Heather, thanks so much for sharing this very cool summer excursion with us. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. If you'd like to hear more about things to do, places to visit, and restaurants to enjoy in North Carolina, check out WRAL Out and About, a weekly podcast from WRAL News. Find WRAL Out and About in your podcast app.